Now I'll look to Municipal Clerk to let me know when we are streaming. Good afternoon. I call this meeting of the Committee of the Whole to order. The meeting for Tuesday, February 18th, 2025. And I'll be turning to Dr. Cottle for the Land Acknowledgement, please.
Thank you, Mayor Krausert. Like many of you, I was stunned last week almost daily in the morning and in the evening by the full moon, especially different times of day as it's over different mountains. And just would find myself in the middle of toing and froing and running to activities, stopping and gasping and really just marveling at it's such an incredible time of year and such a beautiful sight. And whenever things like that happen where my mind is pulled really into the present because of the landscape, I always find myself imagining people who were here long before they had warm heated houses to run into and ways of living that I take for granted. And so I found myself a lot thinking about Indigenous people who were living on and moving through this landscape and knowing that things like a full moon have a significant cultural meaning. And so I just thought I've been trying to revive some of my Stoney, and I used that thinking, being awed by the moon and thinking of Indigenous people and what their reactions to it must have been, especially when it was really chilly, and had to have such a beautiful thing in front of you. So I thought I would share with you that I've learned 2 new Stoney words. The Stoney word for moon is wahiaba. And there's another way to talk about a full moon, which is anuk ogiapa. And there's even a Stoney word to talk about. They have different words for the moon for every month. And there is a name for the midwinter moon, which is the middle moon of the 7th cold month. And it's known, I can't say the word in Stoney yet, it's more complicated, but it's known as the moon when the great bear turns on his side. Which I just thought was also a really lovely thing and it felt like that last week when it was really cold and there was that, it's still dark and the moon is so full that the great bear should just keep sleeping and roll right over. So in that sense, I just wanted to acknowledge in the spirit of truth and reconciliation that I acknowledge and appreciate that I live, work, and play on Treaty 7 lands here in southern Alberta. This land is home to the Blackfoot Confederacy, consisting of the Siksika, Kainai, and Piikani First Nation, the Tsuut'ina First Nation, and our most adjacent Indigenous neighbors, the Stoney Nakoda, composed of the Bears Paw, Chiniki, and Good Stoney First Nations. We're also located within the Rocky View Métis District 4, within the Battle River Territory. We are all treaty people. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Cottle. Now turning to the agenda today, I don't think there's any changes. I move approval of the agenda for the February 18th, 2025 Committee of the Whole meeting as circulated. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. And now we have a delegation. So I'm looking to Ms. Gibbons. You're going to introduce our delegation today.
Perfect. Well, I'm very happy this afternoon to introduce Ms. Bannerman from Legassy Municipal Services, our municipal assessor, to provide a summary and overview of the 2024 property assessment information for 2025 taxation. Just felt very timely as assessment notices were just mailed out on February 13th. And sorry, I will remind myself to get closer to the mic, which I learned from our budget meetings. You need to be closer than you think. But yeah, with that, I will hand it over.
Thank you.
Welcome to the Committee of the Whole. And
Well,
thank you for being here.
Thank you very much. I'll try and, if you can't hear me properly, just let me know, please. So good afternoon, Your Worship and members of Council. Thank you for the invitation to present to you today. My name, as Chelsea mentioned, is Deanne Bannerman, and I'm with Legassy Municipal Services. Although the assessment services are now being offered under a different name, they're still being provided with a familiar face. So our team at Legassy is proud to be providing the assessment services to the town of Canmore, bringing with us nearly a century of combined experience in municipal assessment. I've personally been working for the town of Canmore, or with the town of Canmore, for the past 4 years, and I want to assure you that the transition over from the previous assessment provider will be smooth and seamless. So today I appreciate the opportunity to walk you through the changes that we've noticed in the latest assessment rule. I believe it's important for Council to have a solid understanding of these updates, as they may help you to address inquiries with property owners and also may give you some peace of mind. My goal today is to provide a high-level overview of how the assessment base is evolving and what that means for the community. So to start, I'd like to provide a brief outline of today's presentation. This will follow a familiar structure to what you've seen in past years, because well, I've been there for the last few years providing it under a different provider. So I just want to highlight a few things before we dive into the specifics of the residential and non-residential market changes, year-over-year assessment growth, and some important dates and resources available to both Council and to property owners. So just for some background, as a reminder, because we only do this once a year, municipal assessments are governed by provincial legislation, requiring annual updates to be based on the market value. Market value, in simple terms, is the price a property might be expected to realize if it were to sell in an open market between a willing buyer and seller. Our assessments adhere to the Municipal Government Act and to matters relating to assessment and taxation regulation, and this ensures fairness and accuracy in the assessment base. There are three core principles of Alberta's assessment process. First, properties are assessed using mass appraisal techniques. Second, assessments are the estimate of the fee simple estate of a property, and this represents absolute ownership. And then finally, assessments must reflect typical market conditions for properties of a similar type. So when we talk about mass appraisal, I think it's an easier way to think of it just to ensure fairness and in the assessment process. So rather than valuing each individual property, we actually analyze the market data for groups of similar properties. We create valuation models then from that analysis, and then we apply those valuation models back again to consistently across all properties within that group. Assessment values that are derived, they will not and really should not be equal to the sale price for each specific individual property. With mass appraisal, we're required to use all of the valid sales within a spectrum. So there's going to be a range in values between the sale price and the assessment. And this is because mass appraisal considers the difference in personal buyers' preferences. And sometimes, you know, with the personal seller and buyer motivations, it could just come down to whether the house was or property was purchased on a Friday versus a Monday. That being said, this approach ensures uniformity and equity in the property assessments. So there are a few key dates that are important for this year's assessment process. The assessments that were mailed out last Thursday are supposed to reflect the market value as of July 1st, 2024. And it's important to note that assessment values always look back in time. So the assessments that people are just receiving right now are actually a reflection of the market 8.5 months ago, approximately. Because of this, people often think that assessments are supposed to be lower than the market value, but in fact, we're legislated to value the properties for assessments between 95 and 105%. In addition to the historical valuation date, assessments reflect the physical condition date of the properties as of December 31st, 2024. Sometimes this causes confusion for property owners, especially when they've made improvements to their property after the July 1st date, but before the year-end date. So just to kind of explain it a little bit better, it is if it has been completed on December 31st, or it's a physical condition of the property on December 31st of the previous year, but it would be the market value as of the July 1st for that new improvement. So before we discuss the market value changes, I just want to take a moment to clarify the differences and the relationship between assessments and taxation. While assessment values fluctuate based on market conditions, these changes do not directly translate into taxation increases. The whole purpose of property assessments is to act as a mechanism to fairly distribute the taxation burden that was set through the budget process. So when we're talking, or when I'm talking here, I report that residential values have, say, risen by 10%. It doesn't mean that the taxes will increase by the same percentage. So any increase in assessment doesn't generate new revenue for the town. So now let's look at the numbers. The previous year's taxable assessment base stood at approximately $11.8 billion. For 2024, that figure has risen to just over $13 billion, marking a 9.8% increase. This increase consists of two components, the growth and the market value changes. New developments and property improvements contributed roughly $218 million, or 1.8% of the total increase. The remaining 8%, or approximately $940 million, is attributed to the market changes. And I know we say this every year, but just as a reminder, we don't prepare the assessments for designated industrial or the linear properties. Those are done by the province. So those numbers weren't available at the time of this presentation. So they can be updated once we get that information from the province, but linear and designated industrial really doesn't make up that much of Canmore's assessment base, so it wouldn't significantly impact the numbers. So now let's talk about the market changes. And when we refer to market change, we're discussing how property values have shifted from July 1st, 2023 to July 1st, 2024. As you can all appreciate, Canmore is a very unique market, and it has several distinct neighborhoods and property types, different from the rest of Alberta, actually. Valuation trends can vary significantly across these different areas. So rather than seeing a uniform increase or decrease across the board, just please keep in mind that we often observe these submarkets behaving differently based on the characteristics and demand. So not every property in town is going to change by the same percentage as the typical. So here's what we're seeing in terms of an average market value change. The residential properties for the town of Canmore have increased by an average of 7.7% this year. Different than last year, the residential condos actually followed the same trend at about 8.6%, so they're very close to the detached homes. The non-residential properties have seen a slightly higher increase at 9.7%, and the overall assessment increase due to the market value adjustment sits at 8%. So now if we can shift our focus to the assessment group, assessment growth. This occurs when new developments, renovations, or land use changes add value to a property that was not previously accounted for. So for the 2024 assessment roll, the total assessment growth amounts to approximately, as I mentioned, $218 million. Residential properties contributed roughly $121 million, while non-residential properties added about $97 million. And as I mentioned, the assessment growth represents a 1.9% increase from the previous assessment base. So some notable growth and new developments that contributed to this year's assessment growth included Spring Creek's Timberstone Mountain Lodge, Elk Meadows Industrial Condos, and the Golden Ridge Visitor Accommodation Condos at 1717 Mountain Ave, just among a few. These projects have had a large impact on the town's overall assessment growth. So every year we like to bring forward some of the hot spots, things that council may hear about and have questions about. So I think it's important to bring them forward so that you're informed. One category experiencing significant year-over-year increases is the traditional lodging sector. So this includes the hotels and motels that are not condominiumized. These properties have seen an average increase of 29.3% this year. This increase is largely due to the fact that we assess lodging properties based on 3 years of stabilized income and expenses. So during the COVID-19 period, hotel revenues dropped significantly, as we all know, and that led to the assessments being lowered significantly as well. However, as those years have fallen out of our assessment model, the hotels are returning to pre-pandemic performance levels or better, and their assessed values have increased significantly to reflect that. Another area that we're looking at higher than typical increases would be for the non-residential lands. We're seeing that as an increase again this year, especially in the downtown and along Bow Valley Trail. We've seen several sales of older properties that are being purchased for redevelopment in both of these areas. So some of the older properties that typically would have been valued based on their income-producing potential have been moved over to what we call a land threshold because the land is becoming more valuable than what the property is worth on an income-producing basis. A good example of this is, some of the older motel properties along Bow Valley Trail, where these buildings themselves take up so much of a land mass on a per unit basis. So the highest and best use of these properties is no longer as a motel type property. The highest and best use is multi-story vacation accommodation complexes. So on the residential side, for some hot spots, we continue to conduct our annual property reviews to update our data and to improve accuracy. Some areas that were re-inspected this year and will be seeing notable assessment changes include Cougar Creek East, Blue Grouse Ridge, Juniper Ridge, and the Homesteads areas. Additionally, in the older neighborhoods near downtown, such as Lions Park and Larch, the land value now represents a larger portion of the total assessment as the redevelopment interest increases. And this is obviously also the case for the properties in TP Town. So there have been a couple of neighborhoods, such as in Cairns and Silvertip, where there have been some recent sales transactions where we hadn't had any or very few for a long time. And these sales indicated that they needed to be brought closer to the market, so these properties will see assessment increases larger than compared to the rest of the town. So just to wrap up, I just want to highlight some key dates that are important in the assessment process. The assessment notices were mailed last Thursday on February 13th, so inquiries may have already been coming into you. I know they have to me. The deadline for the property owners to file a formal complaint with the Assessment Review Board is April 22nd, 2025. So there are many excellent resources available to council and the public when it comes to property assessments. The town's website offers some great resources with frequently asked questions, the assessment rules on there, but they also have the interactive property viewer map. And this is a great program which allows residents to be able to compare their assessment with their neighbors. So if you receive inquiries, you can always refer them to us. Our team is available at camware@legacy.ca. And in summary, the 2025 assessments reflect market trends as of July 1st, 2024. And it ensures a fair and equitable tax base for the town of Canmore. I encourage council and residents to review the available resources and to reach out with any questions or concerns. So that wraps up my presentation, and I appreciate the opportunity to present to you about this and happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bannerman. Appreciate that overview. It's always good to get that every year and then to see the new data. So thank you. I'll open it up to members of the Committee of the Whole if anyone has a question. Councillor Mara.
Thank you. I don't really have a question. I just want to thank you for the overview because it's very well explained, and I'm on the ARB board, as you know, and we'll be taking a refresher course this week, so I feel like I already have the Coles notes for that. So thank you for your very clear presentation.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Faubert.
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Bannerman, for your presentation. How would you compare our growth in assessment and market value to other communities across Alberta?
That's kind of a double-edged sword a little bit. So historically, assessment increases in Canmore have been going up at a far higher level than a lot of other municipalities, but there's going to be other pockets in there. Like we've seen Cochrane's values go up, quite a bit over the last little while. Calgary's still going up. without looking at all the specifics, but I would say, from my perspective, the Canmore market is extremely strong and continues to be strong. And I don't think we have any concerns with any kind of decreases going forward, but they are stronger generally, which we can see in the equalization report as well. Generally, one of the strongest in the province, definitely.
And that's based on what's happening in the market, right?
That's right.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
So, yeah, and that's across Alberta. They all have to prepare the assessments to be reflective of the market values as of our valuation date.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? I don't see any. So thank you very much again for being here. And at this time of year, I do make several referrals to you as questions come from owners and say, hey, we don't prepare the assessments, but you know who does?
Yes, for sure. No, I
You can
appreciate
get,
that.
you can get the answer to your questions. Yep,
That's what we're here for. So
yep, perfect, thank you.
very much.
All right then, next on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the last committee of the whole meeting. Any errors or omissions that anyone noticed? See none, I will move that we approve the minutes of the January 21st, 2025 committee of the whole meeting as circulated. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. And now we'll go to item D1, staff reports. This is a 2024 report to the community. Ms. West, welcome.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Mayor and members of Council. Thanks for having me on the agenda today. There we go. I'm here to provide you with the 2024 report to the community, which covers the second year of the strategic plan. I think this was not originally in your agenda package, but I believe you have a copy now. Is that correct? And in the agenda package, the Q4 2024 updates that were included are the same content. It's just this is a much nicer version. It's come back from the designer and ready for the public. The strategic plan articulates three equally important goals: livability, environment, and relationships. The report to the community gives an update on what was accomplished towards these three goals over the previous year. And in 2024, we tracked a number of different metrics related to each goal and objective in the strategic plan. Those metrics are included at the end of the report, and we will continue to track those metrics moving forward as part of the ongoing quarterly updates. I don't want to go into detail on every single metric that was tracked, but I will highlight a few different things here today. Within livability, housing is our community's #1 affordability issue. A number of big steps were taken in 2024 to address our housing crisis, including implementation of a comprehensive housing action plan, progress on Connect Downtown, the town center area redevelopment plan. Construction began in Stewart Creek for the new non-market ownership units with Canmore Community Housing, and the Palliser Trail area structure plan was approved, which will provide up to 1,000 units of non-market rental units. Public transit also impacts livability, and average daily ridership on local routes continued to increase in 2024. Route 5 in particular saw an 18% increase in average daily ridership, and there was a brand new bus route to Grassy Lakes, which began in 2024. Environmental sustainability has been a focus, and 2024 saw several accomplishments in this area. Council accepted the new Climate Emergency Action Plan, which will guide our actions for the next 10 years. Council also accepted the new Human-Wildlife Coexistence Implementation and Action Plan to create sustainable balance between the town's development and regional wildlife. An increased budget for the fruit tree removal incentive program saw 120 fruit trees removed from 73 different properties. And the number of pedestrian trips that are tracked through the intersection of Bow Valley Trail and Railway Avenue have increased 19% over last year, and cycle trips have increased 31% over last year. Fire Smart assessments, a total of 74 of these were completed last year, which is more than double the set goal of 35 assessments. A continued focus on providing meaningful opportunities for engagement saw over 5,400 people participate in both online and in-person opportunities to provide feedback, which was well over the set goal of 2,600. And we continue to work closely with Treaty 7 nations when planning and delivering events in Canmore. The Public Works Department held meetings and a ceremony with Stoney Nakoda members when bison bones were found on a project site, and a groundbreaking ceremony was held at the site of the new water treatment project. The Arts and Culture team collaborated with the nation to celebrate Canada Day and National Indigenous History Month, as well as collaborated for an event on National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. Some actions taken in 2024 have impacts in multiple areas, such as the e-bike incentive program. This is an environmental incentive supporting a reduction in greenhouse gas emissions, and it also improves livability for members of the Affordable Services Program who receive this discount, which contributes to the shift in multimodal transportation in our community. A full list of activities accomplished for each goal is available in the report. This will be available publicly online on our website, and Mayor Krausert will be delivering his annual report to the community presentation through February and March, and a virtual version of this will be recorded and posted to our website. With that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. West, for that presentation and for this report. There's lots of great data in the report as well, and it definitely highlights for us those areas that we're doing well, those areas that we need to do more. Right, so thank you very much. Looking to the committee of the whole to determine if there are any questions. I don't see any. So there you go. You must have knocked it out of the park with the report and the presentation. So thank you very much. All right, we will now turn to councillor updates. It's an opportunity if anyone has any questions for any other member of council with anything that has arisen within their updates. Everybody's read through them, and there's a lot of information there. And Councillor Hillstad, I did know that Jonathan, the 192-year-old giant tortoise, is the oldest living land animal. I don't know how I knew that, but I did know that. Thank you for that. Thank you for that point of interest. Any questions? Okay, seeing none, then we'll move to the administrative update, item F1. Take this section by section. Is there any questions with regards to section A? Corporate strategic team. How about section B, municipal services? I have one there. Actually, it's sort of a question and sort of an addition to my update. I understand that we have received this is from Mr. Mackay to confirm. I understand that we have received a letter of funding for our new Bow Valley Regional Evacuation Modeling and Plan. And that's going to be coming to us at the March 4th council meeting. Is that correct?
That's correct. I'm not sure if we've received the final funding agreement, but we have received a letter of award, and we'll be bringing a capital project addition on March 4th for your consideration.
Excellent, great. I am very pleased that we continue to get the funding on a variety of fronts, and I think that we'll see in March is that we're going to have some funding around fire guards and around this planning, and as well as additional fire smart work. So that's excellent work that's ongoing. Thank you. Any other questions with respect to section B, municipal services? Okay, then C, corporate services. And finally, D, municipal infrastructure. Okay, seeing none. Oh, Oh, you have one? Councillor Mero?
We're in municipal, right?
Yeah.
I just have one regarding Public Works. The tree depots, I noticed that people are still dropping off trees on Cougar Creek, up in Cougar Creek, Christmas trees. Is that where they should be dropping them, or should they be doing it somewhere else?
Mr. Como?
Yeah, they can continue to drop them off there.
Okay.
We know that people will continue to drop them off after the date we've asked them to, but we'll address those.
Okay, thank you.
Question. Any other questions on anything in the administrative update? Okay, looking to see then if there's any comments with regards to the council resolution action list. I do appreciate the larger version. Yeah. Yeah, that's excellent. Okay, and there are a number of things dropping off there that they'll be on for the last time as of this meeting. So that's great. All right, well then that's it for today's meeting. We had very little to cover, and we did it efficiently. So I will move that we adjourn. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone.